from a station working for you. This is WRTV News at 5:30, streaming now.
Now at 5:30, a piece of Indiana racing history found in a garage. What makes this car so special and where it's headed next? And honoring officers who have made the ultimate sacrifice, the Indiana Law Enforcement Office that makes sure they are not forgotten during the holidays. Lindsay.
At the top of our lineup, you'll have to get a second shot for some of the COVID vaccines that scientists are developing. Why doctors say we need to do more to make sure people come back. The pandemic is pushing public transit to the brink. Why more cuts to these systems could hurt our economic recovery. And should recovering from COVID-19 give you a pass to travel again without testing or quarantine? What medical experts are saying about immunity passports.
Now first at 5:30, racing is part of Indiana's DNA, whether it's the Indy 500 or the Brickyard 400. Now only on WRTV, Rafael Sanchez shares the story of the stock car found in a home garage, once driven by an Indy 500 champ and with special ties to the city and WRTV.
Underneath thick dust, hidden in a garage, this racing machine tied to racing history was found 653 miles away from Indianapolis. The 99 car is now making its way back home to Indiana.
Sometimes the chase is better than the find, but this thing being, Indianapolis all over it, it's time to bring it home.
This vintage video shows the ribbon cutting of the vintage vehicle. Indy 500 champion Danny Sullivan was focused in 1994 of competing in the first ever NASCAR race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Sullivan signed on several local companies, including WRTV, to sponsor the number 99, which was named the corporate car of Indianapolis.
It brought out the first caution flag. So in 1994, I was sitting in turn 1 and the window blew out of the car and landed in the raceway and then or a speedway. I still have somewhere my piece of that broken window.
Travis Bell was in the stands for the inaugural Brickyard 400. He saw Sullivan finish the race. The 99 car was never seen again, and Travis wondered about its whereabouts. His friend Aaron Brown got a tip that led them to a garage in Southern Pines, North Carolina, just east of Charlotte. Years of auto archaeology paid off, and Travis bought the number 99. Expect no paint job. Expect no changes. Just a classic comeback.
Has never been repainted. It is exactly as it did, or it looks and appears the day it came off the track. It would be great to see Danny Sullivan take another lap around the Brickyard in the 99.
Working for you, Rafael Sanchez, WRTV.
What an incredible find. The vehicle is currently being restored in North Carolina before heading to the Hoosier State. Kevin.
You gotta love that history. Always enjoy those stories. As you look at Indianapolis, we don't get historical credit for our warmth today. No record temperature, but mild nonetheless. Hopefully you enjoyed that. As you can see, a little bit of a glow on the capital city now as the sun is setting and the windows on the taller buildings reflecting some of that sun. Lots of blue sky today, and certainly temperatures responded to that. As far as what's happening right now, we've got a dry day in progress, and that's been the theme, hasn't it? We are 0 for December. We've had no precipitation, so we're about an inch below average so far this month. The hint is we'll see rain, potentially half an inch or a little more on the Saturday. That's the next best chance for any rain, maybe late Friday night, but most of us it'll be a soggy day on Saturday. Temperatures are coolest to the north, 48 in Tipton, 49 in Peru. Temperatures in the southwest still at 54. As the sun comes up, obviously it's pretty efficient in the afternoon in heating things, but then that sun angle gets low with a clear sky and a light wind. Will cool off rather quickly. We'll be back down into the 20s overnight. There's your wind. It's out of the west at around 10 miles per hour. I'd say it'll be down to 5 miles per hour overnight. Tomorrow, a dry day. Temperatures by noon will push 50. I think with the extra sunshine, we're headed into the mid-50s, if not warmer, from Indianapolis to the south. Areas to the north, the lower 50s. Tomorrow's probably our best combination of sunshine and warmth, because what happens Friday, we'll see more in the way of cloud cover. We'll still be mild, but a lot more clouds around. More details about the end of the work week and your weekend straight ahead.
Today, yet another major country approved Pfizer and BioNTech's COVID-19 vaccine for use. Health Canada gave the green light after reviewing trial data over the last few months. The first doses for Canadians are expected to arrive next week. Meanwhile, there's new information today about how administering that same vaccine is going in the UK. Thousands of older people and healthcare workers got the first dose yesterday. There were 2 cases of people having adverse reactions. Both people were said to have had previous significant allergic reactions and carried EpiPens on a regular basis.
Adverse reactions happen to medications or vaccines, and they can be mild, moderate, or severe. And there's a lot of data about this particular vaccine and the kinds of reactions people get that will be presented and discussed publicly tomorrow at the FDA. In general, the FDA did not find evidence of concerning severe adverse events from this vaccine.
People who previously had bad reactions to vaccines or those with severe allergies were not part of clinical trials. So the UK issued new precautionary guidance saying people prone to severe allergic reactions should not get the vaccine. Both people who had the reaction are said to be recovering well. The UK's new recommendation doesn't necessarily mean that the FDA, though, will do the same.
I'm sure they'll be talking to the regulators in the United Kingdom and doing their own review of the data to make the best recommendation for this country.
Recent research out of Canada found the odds of having a severe allergic reaction to a vaccine are about 1 in 760,000. Your chances of getting struck by lightning are slightly higher at 1 in 700,000. Fever, pain, and mild swelling are not signs of an allergy. Vaccine hesitancy was declared one of the top 10 global health threats of 2019 by the World Health Organization. COVID-19 vaccines and equal distribution are top of mind at the Bloomberg American Health Summit. A new partnership will help support mayors with vaccine education and access. Bloomberg Philanthropies will provide the latest information from Johns Hopkins experts, as well as resources on building vaccine trust and making them easily accessible. Next in our lineup, we're getting you ready for what to expect with a COVID-19 vaccine. Many are going to require 2 shots. What you need to know ahead of time that could make you more likely to go back for the second one.
We see a lot of trees this time of year, but not like one tree in Clinton County that holds a very special meaning. For the second year, the Clinton County Sheriff's Office put up what they call an angel tree to honor the fallen officers of 2020 around the nation. The names of 277 officers and canines adorn 5-inch angels that cover the tree to honor their service and sacrifice. Among the names are 2 fallen officers, IMPD Officer Brianne Leith, killed in the line of duty on April 9th, and Richmond Police Officer Kenneth Lester, killed in the line of duty on February 10th.
Some of the COVID vaccine candidates call for more than 1 shot. So how do we make sure patients come back? Well, 3 experts all tell us preparing people for the side effects will be critical. A nursing researcher described those side effects in a JAMA article. She suspects she had the experimental vaccine as part of Pfizer's phase 3 clinical trials. After the second shot, she said she was lightheaded, nauseous, had a headache, ran a fever, and was hardly able to lift her arm from muscle aches. She wasn't warned, and it scared her into thinking that she might have COVID.
The immune system is revving up. It's responding to that vaccine. And I think we need to tell our patients that so that they expect that. Otherwise, they're going to say, wow, that thing hurt. I'm not coming back for that second dose.
For comparison, a recent shingles vaccine also requires more than 1 dose and can be painful. Providers and advocates lead education efforts on what to expect. The return rate after the first shot for shingles is about 80%, which is considered high. One suggestion is to put information on side effects in COVID vaccine distribution kits. The CDC has already said it plans to include index cards that tell patients what they had and when their next dose is due. And that's on top of electronic reminders like emails or texts. The federal government has also promised to cover most costs for the vaccine. One doctor says he'd take that a step further.
I feel extremely strongly that we should do everything we can in terms of customized, personalized patient support programs, and even recommend that the federal government go beyond free and provide small rewards or incentives for people who complete the 2-dose program.
As we learned through FDA documents yesterday, there's some protection for people who only get 1 dose of the Pfizer vaccine. But nearly full protection is better. The second dose also boosts antibodies.
That's important because of waning immunity. The higher your antibody when you start, the longer it takes for that to decrease over time and potentially make you more susceptible.
That means the best thing is to get both doses as was tested in the study. Ahead in our lineup, revenue is down for public transit with people not riding, and there are more proposed cuts.
I think we have to ask ourselves, do we want our economy to function or not?
We're looking into the concerns if enough people permanently ditch public transit and the long-term impact of possible cuts. The new White House administration is coming into a dual public health crisis, COVID and racism. The president and vice president-elects met with the top civil rights leaders last night. They were commended on recent diverse picks for top cabinet positions, like retired General Lloyd Austin as the country's first black Pentagon chief and Representative Marcia Fudge to lead the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
And we want to ensure that that momentum and that progress is going to continue through the remainder of the appointments he makes.
The head of the National Urban League says the meeting was candid and productive. He says they will support but also hold the administration accountable to their commitments on racial equity, and it starts with COVID.
Ensuring that there's a plan to educate people in the community, to educate Black people and brown people about the process of the vaccine, about the safety and effectiveness of the vaccine, so people can make their own decision.
A top concern among civil rights leaders is vaccine access. The National Urban League's president says the distribution system shouldn't solely be reliant on chain pharmacies, hospitals, and doctors.
To be able to distribute the vaccine at schools, at libraries, at community centers, why not use covered stadiums in some communities, the covered stadiums in places like Indianapolis and New Orleans and Houston.
The head of the NAACP also asked the president-elect for a few national advisor positions that would focus on creating policy centered around racial justice and equity. Two companies are teaming up to include a COVID-19 antibody test in vaccine trials. The Roche antibody test got an emergency use authorization in November. Roche says the test will be used to detect antibodies that develop in response to Moderna's vaccine candidate. That could help researchers learn if or when a patient may need revaccination. Moderna says its vaccine is 94% effective in preventing COVID infections. It's in late-stage trials. For the first time, the federal government will reward nursing homes that stop the spread of COVID. HHS says over 9,000 nursing homes have shown progress in controlling the coronavirus outbreak. Starting today, they'll share $523 million in incentive payments as a reward. About 100,000 nursing home residents and employees have died of COVID.
Favorite time of the evening here. City lights come up as the sun has set. That happened at 5:20. There's your Methodist Hospital complex in the lower left, and then Meridian Street lighting up as you go straight north out of Indy. Clear skies won't change tonight. Sets the stage for another cold night, despite the fact that we made it all the way to 56 during the afternoon hours. Let's talk temperatures. Lower 50s in Zionsville. New Pal's down to 47, 50 in Greenwood. Statewide temperatures not much different. Everybody got to enjoy the warmth. It's still pleasant is one way to put it down in Evansville. They're at 59 degrees, kind of foreshadowing what I think will lift into central Indiana tomorrow, and that would be temperatures slightly warmer. Mostly clear. That patchy fog is possible late tonight, overnight, because the wind will be light. Temperatures during the day tomorrow right back into the 50s. We'll enjoy temperatures of about 56 or so, and these overnight lows, although cool tomorrow morning, look what happens. We jump up Friday morning, and Saturday morning is the warmest low temperature within the forecast. That's from the developing storm system that brings rain on Saturday. Tomorrow, a few more clouds, especially as we go through the day, but temperatures stay mild. The wind will be out of the south and may gust to about 20 miles per hour. That will bring in the warmer air and keep it in place. as we go into Saturday as well. There's the cloud cover. It should be fairly thick through the afternoon hours Friday. That keeps our temperatures down a little bit, but I don't think it comes with any rain until we get to primarily Saturday. Weekend forecast, you can see temperatures, those will be in the mid-50s Saturday, but the milder it feels Saturday, the colder it will feel Sunday. All indications are that the rain will end before the cold air catches the moisture, so maybe a melting snow flurry or something Saturday night, but probably just dry and cold as we go into Sunday.
Public transit systems are in peril across the country, and there are concerns that looming cuts in service could hurt the economy's recovery. Chris Conti takes us inside what's happening.
They come and go with less frequency now.
Face coverings are required.
Empty trains across the country, public transit in peril, as the pandemic has kept people away from traveling in large crowds.
Transit is definitely in trouble.
That's Jared Johnson. He oversees the group Transit Matters. It's not the empty trains and buses that bother him so much as the proposed cuts on the horizon as ridership nationwide has plummeted.
There's definitely going to be plenty of people inconvenienced and some people even stranded.
36 million people across the country depend on public transit, but they just aren't riding right now. So revenues are down dramatically. In Washington, D.C., the metro is losing $100 million a month. In New York City, the MTA is facing $16 billion in cuts. Denver's RTD is facing a $166 million shortfall by year's end. San Francisco's light rail is $33 million in the hole.
Now it's really time for our political leaders to step up and provide the funding that transit needs.
Another big concern is that if public transit services are cut now, they won't be there for riders when the pandemic is over.
A lot of governors are thinking about a reopening strategy for the spring and summer of next year, and they need to make sure that transit is there to be a critical part of that reopening strategy.
Something else is also happening. Demand for used cars is booming, with prices rising more than 9%. The concern is that people will permanently ditch public transit after the pandemic, only making congestion issues worse.
There are also housing implications to all of this. For years, cities and towns across the country have been incentivizing developers to build apartment and housing complexes near transit hubs. But with more Americans working from home, the need for that kind of housing has basically disappeared.
It's not like people aren't choosing to take transit on their trips. They're not taking trips.
Beth Osborne is with Transportation for America. She's worried that if cities and states cut public services, people won't be able to get back to work.
I think we have to ask ourselves, do we want our economy to function or not? It's as simple as that. Either we want economic recovery and we want a strong economy, or we don't.
That's why keeping the country moving on the other side of this pandemic is so important.
This may be the spotlight that forces us to make the changes we should have made before anyway.
In Boston, I'm Chris Conti.
The FTC is warning that news of vaccine development will drive a rise in scams. Here's what the agency says that you need to know. You likely won't have to pay out of pocket for a vaccine. You can't pay early or put your name on a list to get it. No one in vaccine distribution will call asking for your social security number or your payment information. Meanwhile, the FTC says there's a new scam targeting Apple and Amazon users. For Apple customers, robocalls are saying their iCloud account has been breached, and for Amazon, the call may be about a lost package or an order they can't fulfill. Both are a means to rip your credit card information and sensitive personal data. The FTC says that you should hang up on these robocalls right away. Big retailers are trying new tactics to crack down on bots that scoop up the most in-demand products. Resellers will use scalper bot software to buy up things online and repost them at higher prices on sites like eBay or Amazon. This year, it's led to consumers having trouble finding things like the new PS5 or essential goods like toilet paper and disinfecting products. Some stores are trying to step up cybersecurity measures to prevent this, and others have spread out availability or only offered online products to certain customers. Two big tech names are making very different changes on political content. YouTube says it's now going to start cracking down on election misinformation more than a month after polls closed. It's been subject to criticism for allowing videos falsely claiming the election was a fraud to spread on its platform. Meanwhile, Google says it will start allowing political ads once again. It had banned them for weeks over concerns of misinformation. Next in our lineup, there's debate over the concept of immunity passports. We find out if medical experts support the idea of anyone who's already recovered from COVID travel without tests or quarantines. COVID testing before you go and after you arrive or quarantine is required for traveling many places right now. Starting Thursday, Iceland is going to let visitors skip all of that if they prove they've had COVID and recovered. But for now, travel from the U.S. to that country is still not allowed. So are these so-called immunity passports a good idea? Dr. Anja Weinberg has been studying COVID antibodies since March. Her team has tested more than 80,000 people in the New York area, and they found the majority of people who had COVID for moderate or high levels of antibodies.
Since March and April, almost everybody has maintained their level of antibody, relatively maintained. We do see a slight decrease, but overall, they've maintained their antibody levels.
But it's not entirely clear how long immunity does last and how good that protection against COVID is. Dr. Weinberg says we also don't have a lot of data on whether people who have antibodies could still possibly carry enough of the virus that they could spread it. The World Health Organization has advised against immunity passports. It says there's not enough evidence of immunity from antibodies alone.
I think given that we know that many or most people will likely have some protection, this is not an unreasonable way to begin to open up society in a safer way than just throwing open the doors and hoping for the best.
Iceland's chief epidemiologist says he doesn't think it's fair to people who've had COVID that they shouldn't be allowed to travel freely afterward. Critics of immunity passports warn they could potentially reward reckless people who become infected after ignoring COVID rules or take away more of our medical privacy. Remote learning is taking an even greater toll on families months into the school year. These 6 kids in 5 different grade levels are just one example. Both of their parents work full-time outside of their home. Tomorrow, the new responsibilities the kids are having to take on and the impact it could have.
And the best part of today is we'll do it again tomorrow, Friday, even Saturday we'll have the mild temperatures, and that's the mild side, then much colder as we get to Sunday. We'll talk about the rain over the weekend as well coming up at the